you want to go to these ginormous Pokemon tournaments but have anxiety and don't know what to do? Check out this video. I'll give you a bunch of tips and advice.
Hey, yo, Tyson, why should we listen to you? You don't have a good placement at a Pokemon tournament yet.
You're right. I'll be right back. Is 12th place out of like 1,100 people good enough for you? Seriously though, I just spent like 30 minutes recording this video and I went to edit it and I just found out that stupid Streamlabs had turned my mic off like 2 minutes into the video. I'm so angry. I'm going to be watching it a lot more now, but I just wasted all my time and now I have a physical therapy appointment in a little bit and I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this all. So you might see me in a different shirt later on. Don't judge me for it, but I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible, which is great because I did ramble a lot, but this is my experiences and thoughts about having anxiety and performing at a regional. This is going to be mostly about Pokemon, but if you're going to any tournament at all, this might be helpful for you, but just know that that's what it's going to be mostly about. I wanted to make this video because I saw a lot of other top players making YouTube videos, and not a lot of them are about, like, dealing with anxiety. They're just like, have fun, bring snacks, have headphones or whatever, and, like, those are good tips, but, like, they're making tips for pro players, not people that have, like, never been to a tournament before, or, like, have gone to tournaments before, but they can just never convert. So that's what I wanted to make. So the first thing that I want to understand is that when you're going into a tournament, like maybe you've played the game before and you're really good, like you beat your friends, you're really great on the online client, but you go to regionals and you just get bodied and you're like, what's going on? I feel like I want to emphasize the importance of like a best of 50 minutes. It's so much different than just playing a best of one with a friend or like online even, because first of all, online, it shuffles your deck for you. It makes all the action so much quicker. You have to shuffle everything else yourself in real life. So it's very much different. Second of all, the stakes are higher. People are competing for money, for championship points, medals, awards, titles, everything like that. So it's not just going to be all buddy. So you will like get anxious. You're going to start overthinking. You're going to play slower. I feel like it's super important to like tell yourself that you are going to be playing slower if you're not as experienced. And to be honest, in my opinion, that should influence your deck choice. So in this current format, as of today when this video comes out, we're going to compare two deck choices. So there's the deck that I played, which was Lost Box, which has a lot of actions. And every action you do costs time, and that's a luxury in this game because you don't have too much. It's not likely that you will be finishing a best of 3 in 50 minutes if you play every game out to completion. Things you should learn about is when to scoop and stuff like that, but that's a video for another time. This is focusing on mostly just playing with anxiety, but I want to like just kind of show you that like if you're gonna play a little slower, you should like maybe play a deck that takes less actions. So there's this pace of play rule like section from the handbook. I'll put it right here. Don't worry about reading it too much. Just know that this is the allotted time you're allowed for each action that you're gonna make. Having said that, obviously there's like kind of this unwritten rule that the first deck search you make in each game, you can like take a little longer to look at your prizes. Obviously it's not written anywhere, so you technically shouldn't be doing it, but everyone just does it. And even on stream, even in the championship matches, they do it. So like until Pokemon says otherwise, people are going to continue to do it. So you should, you know, we'll talk about that later, but let's just compare these two. So we have Lost Box and Arceus Duraludon. They're two very great decks. Arceus Duraludon has placed in the top 8 multiple times, so is Lost Box. But I just want to run through like what a turn 1 would look like from each deck. So for Lost Box, let's take a look at it. You will draw for turn. You go ahead and flower selecting. You go use a scoop up net, flower selecting again. Battle VIP pass. You're gonna go ahead and get yourself like 2 more Pokemon, which is pretty nice. Concealed cards, draw 2 extra. Got a Colress experiment, gonna use your supporter for turn. Look at 5 cards, you know, try and figure out which one you want to keep. Got another scoop up net. Let's go ahead and flower selecting again. Escape rope. Go ahead and Primate Wisdom. Save a card to the top of your deck just in case you're getting marnied. And then we'll go ahead and spit innocently. That's about 12 actions. That's a lot. And then we'll go over to Arceus Duraludon. You'll go ahead and draw for turn. Quick ball for Duraludon. You'll go ahead and attach an energy to your Arceus and pass. That was 4 actions if you count the pass. So obviously this isn't how it's going to go every time. Sometimes you'll take a little bit more action. Sometimes you'll take a lot less. But on average, this is probably what it's going to be like. I would say Arceus Duraludon, you'll be taking like 40-second turns. Lost Box, if you're playing slow enough, you could take like 4 or 5 minute turns on your first turn, which is not good. Um, you The more actions you take, the more time you're going to take. And if you're inexperienced and don't know like what you should be doing, because putting cards in the lost zone as compared to the discard pile is a lot more punishing, because if you lost on an energy card, you can't get it back as you could with like an ordinary rod to get energy from your discard pile back, stuff like that. So it's insanely vital that if you're going to play a deck like Lost Box, that you are very comfortable with your deck, you know everything about it, you know how to sequence it and stuff. Obviously you're going to have some hard choices, but 90% of the time you're going to be like, oh, easy choice, I know what I need to do here. So I would say that you would be more comfortable playing a deck like Arceus Duraludon, which is very more linear, very easy to know what your game plan is, because it's pretty much the same against every deck compared to like any other deck. But let's say you're like, Tyson, I don't really care about any of that. I found my perfect 60. It's going to win me the tournament. What do I do now? Well, so if you have your perfect 60 and you're like, whatever, like I know it, but I'm probably going to play a little slow. These are the things you can do by yourself. I think the number one thing you should be doing, absolutely, like without a doubt, is if you're playing by yourself, you should set up a deck or set up like a game like you would normally. And then your first deck search, you should time yourself and try and see if you can get all 6 prizes found immediately. I was very shocked to find out that not a lot of people do this. Even top players admitting that they don't check their prizes. If you don't check your prizes and you're like, I'll just let God handle it, God will let you down. God will punish you for that. I think it's very important. Obviously, there's going to be some examples where if you go to like game 3 on your winning in and you got like 15 minutes left, you know that you got to go for it if you don't want to get a tie. Sometimes you just kind of have to balls to the wallet and then just hope that you didn't prize anything. But for the most part, if you're in like game 1, take the 30 seconds and look through your prizes. That's the goal. You should be able to find your 6 prizes within 30 seconds or less, or at least the important ones. You don't need to know how many battle VIP pass you prized because it's not that important. But I think knowing exactly what are in your prizes will help you in the long run, because you need to know how like to play around it. Like if you prize a bunch of Pokemon, it's going to affect how you play your map. So just have that figured out on like how you're going to do it. There's a lot of different ways to check your prizes. Just don't take 5 minutes. Like I said earlier, you know, it's an unwritten rule that you're allowed to take longer. But like it's not in the rule book. So like if you're going excessively long, do not be surprised if your opponent calls you out for it. So that's something important. If you have a friend that can help you test, I know like a lot of people that are getting into the game usually don't have like an easily accessible friend that can help them out. But if you're lucky enough to have someone that's like, yeah, I'll play with you, help them time you in a best of 3 50 minutes. And this is important though, because it's not going to be like a buddy conversation that you're having. It's something that you need to be like very serious about. Like you can't just be like, oh, while you like finish game 1 and you're shuffling and just talking about like work or something like that. You don't pause time. If you're just like screwing around while you're testing with your friend and they like don't shuffle your deck because they're like, oh, I know you're not cheating, it will bite you. Because if you like, you should never be playing for a tie. That's super important. You should always be playing to win or lose. There's very rare scenarios where you should be playing for a tie. Like if your win condition's gone and there's like 3 minutes left and a tie still makes you into day 2 or something like that. But those are things you'll worry about later after you day 2 a regional, because I believe in you. But you should be focusing on playing as efficiently as possible, shuffling fast, making sure that you can complete a best of 3 in 50 minutes 90% of the time. 99% of the time, to be honest. You never want to tie. Tying feels so bad. It's not great. Like, the only reason you should be happy with a tie is if you like are going against like an unwinnable matchup. Like you're playing Mew VMAX and your opponent is playing literally 4 Drapion and you somehow tie. That's not a real deck, don't worry, but you know, just something like that. If you bring a notepad, which I recommend you do if you're playing a deck that's not Arceus Duraludon, the number one thing you should be doing is also bringing a watch, which every top player recommends. And as soon as the round starts, like you're like, you know, welcome to round 4, trainers, you may begin, fist bump, your opponent starts, write down the time that the round started, so that when game 1 finishes, you're like, okay, I wrote it down at like 2:03, it's now 2:21, so we only took 20 minutes, so like we're good. But if it was like 2:40, you're like, dang, that's not a lot of time. Did I win that? That's pretty good. Because if you win, now this is gonna sound kind of shady, but like again, when you're playing a best of 3, your win conditions change from just like you know, decking them out, taking all 6 prize cards, benching them or them out like where they don't have another Pokemon to replace them, like donking them, I guess is the right word for that. My apologies. But if you win and there's like 6 minutes left in the round, that should influence how you play the next game. Like I was playing Lost Box and I beat someone. So I was playing against Vikavolt, which is item lock. And so I can't use a lot of my cards, which should make the turns go by faster, but I do have to think a little bit more about what's going on. But we were both taking like neither of us were complaining about pace of play. It was just like I was playing a single prizer deck, so he was taking a bunch of one prize turns, and it was very slow. I ended up winning it, and I knew that I was like, I have 7 minutes left. There's no way we're gonna finish a game 2, so I played a little suboptimally by benching Pokemon on my bench that I probably shouldn't have, because I didn't want to get donked. The only way I really lose this match is by getting donked, no having any Pokemon, because there's no way we're gonna finish it. And you can say like that's not really sportsmanship. You should play the game as normal. One of the top players, Azul GG, has even admitted when he has game in hand, he will play every action he can if he knows that the clock is running out, if it's like game 1, because he's progressing the board state. He's not doing anything illegal. You can argue day in and day out about how unsportsmanship it is, but it's in the rules. It's legal to do, and you should be, as the opponent, realizing that he probably has game if he's like concealed carding for 2 and he just needs like an energy to win, and he just got rid of an energy. Like if it's a top player, you know he didn't just make that mistake, so you should probably scoop to save time there. But again, that's something you can worry about later. But just like know that these are tactics you can use. Do not slow play. This is very different than slow playing. Slow playing is when you like are purposely like trying to go as slow as possible to run out of the clock. That is completely different, because you're not progressing the board state as all in the rule books. And if it changes, I won't be mad about. As long as you are progressing the board state, you're not doing anything against the rules. So those are just some things you should know. That doesn't really have to do anything with anxiety. It's just knowing that there are other win cons in a best of 3. So it sounds shady, but if you want to be at a top table, these are things that they all do. Like no one's like being like, oh, I have just a lone Lugia on my active, and then I'm going against an electric deck. But it would be like unsportsmanship for me to bench another Pokemon that, because I know I'm not going to use it. Like, no, you're gonna do it, because if you doesn't win this next turn, you win. So like stuff like that. It's also really important for you to read up on the rule book. Oh my gosh, I just realized I have my physical therapy in like 2 minutes. Okay, I gotta go. Manage your time better. I'll be right back. Crap. Oh my gosh. Okay. Side note. Physical therapy, the best thing that's ever happened to me. I feel so sore, but I finally figured out what's going on with my knee. Video for another time. I'm gonna move over to the this is like the harder parts, and where specific. My cat just knocked over my water cup. I'm sorry, give me a second. I think as a person who goes to a lot of tournaments, the 2 biggest things that I struggle with are asking my opponent to play faster and calling a judge. And usually, sometimes they kind of intermingle. If you don't finish your games, it goes to a tie. And if you get a lot of ties, your chances of making it to the top 8 or even day 2 go tremendously down. I think that, yeah, well, sometimes you'd like, instead of a loss, you get a tie is cool, but most of the time you feel like you put yourself into a good position, but you ran out of time. That's seems to be my biggest concern, is I always have these great matchups, but I just take too long. And so I always struggle asking my opponent to play faster. Sorry. Oh, physical therapy is killing me. It was so rough. Sorry. So I always try and figure out ways. I even tweeted about it. I was like, what is the best way that I can ask my opponent to play faster without sounding like a jerk? Someone was like, you just count the prize cards and say, hey, look, there's like 10 prize cards left between the 2 of us. We both need to pick up our pace of play, or we're going to end in a tie, and I don't think either of us wants that. Sometimes you just want to be like, hey, buddy, I'm going to need you to make an action. A lot of the times the excuse I get back is, sorry, I just have to think a little bit, or I have to think a lot. There's a lot of actions I have to make. And not to sound like a jerk, but you basically have to be like, well, that's crazy. Unfortunately, though, Pokemon doesn't give you extra time because you decided to play the deck that you picked. You still got to make an action, and we still need to like advance the board state. And you don't have to say it like that mean, but you just have to be like, I understand, but like you still need to advance the board state. And if they continue to keep slow playing, then you have to go into the second part, which is really hard, is to call a judge. It's very scary. I don't like being confrontational. I just want to have fun. I do want to win, though, a little bit more. So, like, I want to make sure that I'm putting myself into a good position. So just don't be afraid to be like, hey, judge, sorry, could you just watch your pace of play? Because you really don't want to go to a tie. It's not fun. It feels bad. So And your opponent, most of the times, 99% of the time, like I feel like out of all the tournaments I've ever been to, like 95% of my opponents have been super chill, super great. They might just be slow because they're also nervous and they don't realize it. Even some of the top players are like, sometimes they just overthink. And when my opponent says, hey, you need to make an action, you're like, darn, you're right, actually. You just get lost in the moment. There's a lot on the line. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, though. Especially if you, as a newer player, are going against like an older player and they're like, I can do what I want. Don't don't let that happen. I remember I was watching a YouTube vlog or something, and this girl was talking about how she was playing New VMAX. I don't remember what deck she was going against, probably Lugia. And she won game one, and it was game two, and it went to time. And on turn three of time, he took two prize cards to go down to one prize card. And he was like, well, I was going to win anyways, and circled tie because he won game, allegedly was going to win game two, and she didn't know any better, so she just let it happen. And then realized later on that that's not how it works. She could have taken zero prizes, he could have taken five, but because turn three happened and that's time, he loses. And so it really does just like stand up for yourself. If you're not sure of anything, don't let your opponent coax you into anything you're not comfortable with. That is what the judges are there for. We say that all the time. And it's something I need to work on too, but do not be afraid to call a judge. And if you don't like what the judge is saying, do not be afraid to appeal it to a head judge. They are there to help you. They're not trying to be malicious. They don't gain anything from screwing you out of a win ever. So they just are doing what they're trying to do the best. So they're an asset, they're a resource. Please use them. And don't be scared or intimidated by an older experienced opponent to try and get you to do something that wouldn't put you in the best situation possible. One of the most important things, it's usually the last thing that I do before a tournament starts, is me and my friends will agree on a spot to go to after each of our rounds. Pardon my potty mouth, Pokemon, but the Wi-Fi at most regionals and internationals is booty. There's a lot of people. It's not like they can do anything, but they usually gatekeep the password behind like stage 3 of like VIP package upgrades, which is like $150. It's not great. So trying to call or text your friends just usually doesn't happen because there's so many people. And then you get lost and it's just overwhelming. And that's a lot of anxiety you don't want to add to your already overwhelming day. So it'd be really good if you're like, let's meet at table 608 or let's meet at this column right outside the venue every time so that when we get out there, if no one's there, you're like, okay, I'm the first one, or you finish up and it's time, you know right where to go to talk to your friends about how you either got bodied or luck sacked someone. You know, it's always good just to have a place to go to. If you're going by yourself, or you finish around super early, I think it's also super important to bring some headphones. This one is a tip that a lot of people will say, but if you can get like noise canceling ones too, they're great. People are going to talk very loud. There's a lot of noises, you know, the tapping from Pokemon Go, very obnoxious. Someone's going to crit in the VGC and people are going to scream because it's pretty awesome. Like, it's going to get overwhelming especially if you're overstimulated. So I would bring some headphones. It's very nice because you're not going to find a lot of quiet spots at venues. So that's super important. All right, I think I covered everything. I hope I didn't forget because of the little break that I took. But you know, just knowing that like if I could give you one piece of advice that you take forever, this is the one that's like super big for someone that has like anxiety or like even I would go as far to say self-confidence issues, which might be a little extreme, but you're going to probably make a mistake. Whether you catch it or not, you might make a misplay. Even pro players do it. I think the thing is like it's a good thing to know if you make a mistake. Like it's pretty good. You're like, wow, I shouldn't have done that, or why didn't I bench this Pokemon when I should have? I made a lot of misplays, and it's really, really important to not let it go to your head because it can stop you from making like better plays. If you do something that's suboptimal, you can't just be like, well, I lose. I'm giving up and I'm leaving. You have to keep trying because your opponent doesn't know if you made a mistake most of the time. If you forgot to bench something, they just don't know what's in your hand. So maybe you can just like kind of work with what you got, but don't just give up. Especially do not carry it over to the next round, the next game, the next match, the next day. You have to let it go. Everyone makes mistakes. You've seen it in finals where they have the headphones on, there's static noise. There's a lot on the line there. They make mistakes. They don't just get, well, I scoop, I'm stupid. No, they do whatever they can to make sure that they put themselves in the best situation possible, even with a mistake. It's gonna be okay. You know, you might make a mistake that actually gets you like a lot of penalties. That's nerve-wracking. I won't lie, that kind of sucks. You can even get up to DQ'd for making like really like if you make multiple irreparable. Words are hard. Just a really bad board state. I've seen it happen before. It sucks. It probably won't happen to you as long as you just try and keep aware of the board state. But you might get a penalty. Don't let it go to your head. Just calm down. Everyone makes mistakes. It's gonna be okay. And I know saying like it's gonna be okay is like telling like a depressed person to smile. It's not easy. So there's just some tips and just generic everyday like anxiety tips that you could carry over into tournaments where you just like breathe, find your like happy music, just make sure that you put yourself in a really good position. Like sleeping's important. You're probably not going to get a lot of sleep, especially if you make a day two because you're like anxious and stuff. So just do whatever you can to put yourself in the best situation possible. I've seen a lot of people that say like if you don't normally eat breakfast, probably don't even eat breakfast before your first couple rounds because you're just going to feel gross because your body's not ready for it. Um, yeah, just stuff like that. I think that covers everything. Like I said, if I missed anything, feel free to leave it in the comments below if you have any tips or if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer them because I would love for every person, regardless of what they're struggling with, be able to go to Pokemon tournaments. Obviously, Pokemon is a luxury, not a necessity, but anyone that wants to go, I wish would get to go, and nothing like, like anxiety, depression, stuff like that will ever hold you back. So if you need anything, I like just message the comments and I will figure out whatever advice I need to give. But that seems like it's I just said this like 15 times, but if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below in the comments. I will get back to them as soon as I can. And if you ever see me at a regional, please feel free to come up and say hi. I love meeting people. And if you body me in a round, pretend it was close so that my ego stays good, Having said that, though, thank you so much for watching. You guys are amazing. Again, I want to thank everyone for the support they gave me when I made my day 2 over in Knoxville and ended up getting 12. I felt so loved every time that I bubbled out or like just missed day 2. You guys were always in the comments being like, I got you, I believe you, you're gonna get the next one. Like, you had so much faith in me even when I didn't have that much faith in myself. So it meant a lot, even when I didn't really show it at the time because I was so discouraged on myself. But I kept practicing, and look at us now. I'm so excited because I have a lot of big tournaments coming up, and I hope that I can make you all proud. Having said that, I'm gonna go now. So thank you so much again for watching. I am just a broken record, but you guys are amazing, and I can't wait to see where our Pokemon journeys continue. Bye, everyone. Woo!